Year 1927 was one of the most complicated, most ambiguous years in the history of Kazakhstan. That was the beginning of the Goloshokin reforms, collectivization, which eventually turned into a national tragedy known as the Great Jute, a famine, which killed almost a third of the country's population. The same year, the construction of the Turkestan-Siberia Railway began, which was the largest railroad that connects Central Asia and Kazakhstan with the Trans-Siberian Railway. And at the same time, 1927 was the year of a powerful spiritual and creative breakthrough. Country's first musical drama theater was created in Kizlorda, managed by talented and distinctive director Zhumat Shanin, who has brought the theater troupe to the most important event for Kazakhstan, an ethnographic concert in Moscow. The brightest representatives of the culture of that time were in the same train to the Soviet Union's capital: Kali Bayzhanov, Amrey Kashaubayev, Isa Bayzakov, Yalubai Omurzakov, Kurmanbek Zhandarbekov, and as well as Shanin's wife, actress Zhanbike, with their 6-month-old son. Back in those years, women had only 6 weeks to recover after the labor, so Zhanbike had no choice but to take the baby with her. On the way to Moscow, the child got sick and suddenly died. For the rest of the journey, which lasted for a few days, poor Zhanbike dandled the dead baby and pretended that she was alive. The whole delegation grieved with the couple and admired their selflessness. Putting aside their own pain, their own tragedy, they concentrated on the performance and the main goal of their colleagues, who represented their country at the ethnographic concert in Moscow. For Zhumat Shanin, the founder of the Kazakh theater art, it was natural to put common interests above his own. He devoted all his life, all his talent, to the formation and development of culture in Kazakhstan, and he left the same way, without changing and abandoning his principles, even after suffering political repression. Moscow. The performance of the Kazakh troupe at the ethnographic concert was very successful. The program presented to the sophisticated Moscow audience consisted of 14 performances. Mostly they were folk songs in version of Zatayevich, a unique person in our art. He was a collector of Kazakh folk music. Thanks to him, many works were preserved. He put them together in a single collection called 1000 Songs of Kazakh People. So, Zhumat Shanin, the head of the troupe, hosted that concert together with Alexander Zatayevich. If Kazakhstan had not been represented at that ethnographic concert, of course the decade of Kazakhstan's culture in Russia would not happen, which gave a very powerful impetus to the development of theatrical art in Kazakhstan.
Да, он положил на алтарь очень много. Вот в эти минуты, наверное, буквально, да, вот этого эпизода страшного в...
Yes, he literally sacrificed a lot of things, including that terrible moment with a child in a train. But I think that this was a huge impetus, and it was very important. Zhumat really wanted the art of Kazakhstan to have the best representatives, including singers, instrumentalists, so that these people could bear the success, which will be far beyond the country's borders.
Представители певцов, инструменталистов, чтобы эти люди вынесли славу и, как сказать, успех, может быть, да, творческих людей, культуры Казахстана далеко за его пределами.
Zhumat Shanin was born in 1892 in the Bayanavl district of the Pavlodar region. His father was a poor man, Turgumbay. The boy was naturally talented and intelligent, loved to study and the art. The beauty of the Bayanavl region stirred the imagination of the child. He wanted to sing and tell others about everything around him. So Zhumat persuaded his uncle Altinbay to teach him to play the dombra. The local mullah helped the boy to learn writing, and Zhumat was able to write down everything created by his imagination: thoughts, images, poems, melodies, everything that inspired his later performances, productions, and plays.
Детство у него было непростое. А на самом деле было полны каких-то лишений. Родился он в семье.
His childhood was not simple, but in fact it was full of hardships. He was born in a family not rich, not poor, and his grandfather and father were forced to move from Zheltau closer to the mines. And his father, Turgenbai, worked at the mine. Later in his life, Zhumat wrote the play Mine. It was originally called From Death to Hope, and all this hard work of a miner was described there. At the same time, Zhumat Turgenbayevich's grandfather, Shana, often took him to the Koyande fair. That's when he heard the Tatembet cues and Birjan songs.
Зумата Тургенбаевича Шана, он его часто брал с собой на Кояндинскую ярмарку. Вот он тогда я услышал проникновенные кви Татембета, песни Биржана.
Young Shanin's village was too small for him. He wanted to meet new people, attend events, make acquaintances. And in 1912, together with the other representatives of the progressive youth of that time, he was sent to the city of Omsk. The public life there was very dynamic. Students had hobby clubs, discussed a lot of things, and read a lot. In Omsk, he met Sakyan Seyfulin, Makhjan Zhumabаев, Nigmet Nurmakov. These meetings determined his future destiny. His friends from wealthy families could afford to study only, but Shanin had to work in order to somehow survive in a huge city. He went through the trainings and worked as an accountant. However, in 1916, he had to finish his studies. During the ongoing First World War, under the decree on requisition of Tsar Nicholas II, the male population of Kazakhstan, Central Asia, and Siberia, aged 19 to 43 years old, was mobilized for home front. 240,000 Kazakhs should have been called up, and that was done in spite of the promise of the royal authorities not to take the local population as soldiers. Zhumat Shanin was in the list.
Он сразу же там вокруг себя собрал людей.
There he immediately gathered the people around him. They had chosen him as a leader. He expressed their interests and used to meet the authorities in order to defend their ordinary soldiers. For that, he has received punitive confinement many times.
Не раз сидел в карцере.
After returning home, Zhumat got a job as an accountant again, but he clearly understood that it wasn't his mission. He wanted to create and share his work with the people. Without thinking twice, Shanin, with a small group of supporters, has created the first drama club and wrote his first play.
Надо осознавать то, что у казахов того периода как такового театра не было. И это не та древняя культура там, Греции, там, Рима.
It is necessary to understand that the Kazakhs of that period didn't have a theater at all. I'm talking about the ancient culture of Greece, Rome, the rich history of that genre of art. They started to do it all together and actually made the Kazakh theater from scratch. And of course, when you think of people who can do it, you understand that they were not ordinary people. They were extraordinary personalities, reformers, people who thought of changes as a joy, which gives an opportunity for development, and they understood it all and wanted all these changes.
Это реформаторы. Это люди, которые встречают перемены как радость, которая дает возможность для развития. И они понимали это все и жаждали этих всех перемен.
The first play of Zhumat Shanin, Arkalig Bater, was based on folk tales. And in this work, which combined the beauty of the Kazakh steppes, landscapes, and the harsh reality of that time, Shanin expressed everything that he had carried in his soul for years. The protagonist, Bater Arkalig, is looking for justice, the triumph of good. And together with his loyal fellow Baters, he bravely opposes the feudal lords, who violate the law for their profit.
Он в себе воплотил очень много качеств. Это, во-первых, человек...
He had a lot of qualities. First of all, he was very creative. As they say now, the man of ideas. He was a proactive genius who looked far, far ahead. He used a systematic approach to everything.
Который смотрел далеко-далеко вперед. Он смотрел, как это сейчас говорят, системно на все вопросы.
The city of Semipalatinsk became the place where his talents fully revealed. There, Karakos, Yenli Kebek, Aidarbek, Torsikbai, Baibisha Tokal, and others were first staged. Shanin worked as a director and actor of the Semipalatinsk Provincial Theater until 1927. From the East, Shanin went to the south. When a Republican theater opened in Kizlorda, Shanin was appointed as its chief director. Unfortunately, now the building of the first Kazakh theater no longer exists, but Chimkent City has a theater named after Zhumat Shanin, and it is also very old, which went through the changes of times and ideals. In 1934, Shanin went to Almaty with his team and, of course, his family. His wife, Zhanbike Shanina, was an actress, very musical and talented. She's considered to be the first Kazakh actress before her only men worked on the stage of the theater. They performed female roles, too. With the appearance of Zhanbike in the troupe, everything changed. She has opened the way to the stage for all gifted Kazakh women who dreamed of trying themselves. After the death of the child, which happened in the train, the couple was recovering for a long time. It was the biggest wound of Zhumat and Zhanbike. They tried to forget and almost never talked about that loss, but from time to time Zhumat was suffering. Fortunately, they already had two sons, Raubek and Kasimhan. They fully inherited the talents of their parents. He was not just the head of the Kazakh theater in Almaty and actor on stage, he also wrote the first books on theater art, acting, oratory, and directing. He was called the Kazakh Stanislavski. He opened the first theaters in other major cities of the Soviet Union. On January the 13th, 1931, Shanin was the first Kazakh in the Soviet Union to receive the title of People's Artist of the Kazakh Republic. (1936) was closed, year of the Kazakh decade in Moscow. The entire cultural world of the young republic was preparing for this big event. It was decided to show two operas in Moscow, Jibek and Joly. Music was written by Brusilovsky. The directors were Zhumat Shanin and Kurmanbek Zhandarbekov. The rehearsals were taking place all day and night. The People's Commissioner for Education, Zhurganov, supervised this work. Finally, in May 1936, the entire Kazakh delegation went to the event. Moscow, the Bolshoi Theater. The hall was already full and the audience was waiting. The team was nervous. The scenery and musical instruments were ready. Judging by the applause behind the scenes, the artist guessed. Stalin entered the hall, but the curtain was still down. 1 minute, 2, 3, 5, 6, 8, 10. The curtain went up only after 12 minutes. A 12-minute delay. Why it happened and what happened, we will never know. But these 12 minutes were enough to be a reason to arrest and execute Zhumat Shanin. However, not only Zhumat was blamed for this. Second Seyfulin, Temirbek Zhurganov, and other representatives of the Kazakh intelligentsia were also arrested. They were accused of holding the curtain down on purpose. Allegedly, at this time, Shanin, Zhurganov, and Seyfulin were supposed to run to the second floor, get into the government lodge, and kill Stalin.
То, что там занавес не открылся, конечно, могут быть абсолютно разные причины.
The fact that the curtain did not open on time could be caused by totally different reasons. As professionals, we always know that it is all about the details. Well, of course, as a creative person, he had nothing to do with the politics. He was not interested in politics, especially since he really supported the government of that time. It gave him the opportunity to lead the theater, to create this theater, and such accusation was a complete nonsense.
И абсолютно это нонсенс, то, что было такое обвинение.
After the concert, despite the tremendous success, Zhumat Shanin was not invited to the St. George Hall to meet Stalin, although the rest of the team was there. Almost all participants of the event received the government awards except Zhumat Shanin. It seemed like they had forgotten him. Even though the success of the decade was his merit, he was the artistic director of the program, the troupe, and the producer of the show. Zhumat Shanin was upset and depressed and did not return with the troupe to Almaty, but he went to Uralsk to open a new theater. Less than half a year later, Zhumat Shanin was arrested and taken to Almaty. Zhumat Shanin was arrested in October 1937, killed in February of 1938. It took only 4 months for the NKVD to start a criminal case to collect all the necessary evidence and decide the fate of a person. The case was closed by the famous Troika court with a special decree. Troika was supposed to consider cases and make sentences within 3 days.
Конечно, трагедия для всего нашего народа. Почему? Потому что за такой короткий промежуток жизни...
Of course, it is the tragedy for all of our people, because he died when he was only 46 years old. He managed to create a lot. He has built a Kazakh theater. He wrote 11 plays. He has written many articles on theater and culture in Kazakhstan. Imagine how much he could have done for the culture of Kazakhstan and how much we really lost just because there was this absolutely absurd accusation that they tried to assassinate Stalin.
Потеряли, на самом деле, просто из-за того, что было вот это вот абсолютно абсурдное обвинение в том, что они хотели сделать попытку покушения там, на Сталина.
Zhumat Shanin was executed by firing squad the same day as Saken Seyfulin, Timirbek Jurgenov, Beimbet Mailin, and other so-called enemies of the people, who were, in fact, the people's pride. But unlike his comrades, who were somehow related to politics, Zhumat Shanin was absolutely indifferent to it. His heart was devoted only to creativeness, music, and love. At night, in February 1938, the bodies of the tortured and executed were put into sacks and buried in the outskirts of Burundai, in a place that was called Kankelde, or Blood Has Come. After the death of Zhumat, the relatives of the enemy of the people were forced to leave the city of Almaty within 3 days. But even this did not save his wife Zhanbike. She was arrested in June of 1938. Zhanbike Shanina was sentenced to 8 years of prison, which she served in the Akmola camp of the wives of traitors of the motherland, together with other women of the same fate. The Astana Opera is the crown of the history of development of theaters in Kazakhstan. It is the youngest one and the biggest one, but there are still dozens of hundreds of other theaters. All this is our heritage left by a particular person. He left not only the good name of talented followers and a life of honor, he laid the foundation of our current culture. And I am sure he would be happy to see this kind of art developing in his native land, where historically the theater did not exist. And this means that Zhumat Shanin lived, worked, loved, and died for a reason.